Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven at WNHH New Haven's home for community radio. This is Paul Bass inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven tick. And nothing makes New Haven tick more than Pundit Thursday, in which we run down the stories of the week with the most incisive and hardest working journalist in the business. But wait, do we have the time right?
What did we say last week?
Well, I forget if it's
a
daylight.
construct.
No.
Oh, that's right. It's a construct.
Doesn't matter what time.
What is time?
So it doesn't
What is
matter if it's
Nothing.
daylight
Construct.
savings, not savings,
Nope.
bonded, congressionally approved, fluid. We have whatever time it is. It's Pundit Thursday.
That's
time.
right.
Pundit Thursday.
With Babs Rawls-Ivy, the editor of the Inner City, host of Babs Love Babs Love Talk, and the person who's everywhere all week in town and brings joy wherever she goes, online or in person. Lucy Gelman, the editor of the Arts Paper.
Woohoo. Hello.
And Markeisha Ricks, the longtime veteran journalist, the mentor, the next generation. Thanks, everybody, for
My
showing
title's
up.
gotten so long.
Yeah, I'll add a
it's
few more.
true.
You're the new Joe Ugly.
The empress, the mistress of the universe.
Cool, I like that. You
I'm
like
in charge
Empress?
of nothing.
You're in charge of the
don't
baby.
call
And that
me.
means everything.
You can call me about the babies, but be clear.
Yeah, the
Be
baby
clear
journalist.
what you're calling me about,
Yeah.
though.
Anyone got a quarter I can borrow?
No.
I have a quarter.
Oh, you do?
She
Okay.
does. She the only one.
Oh,
on the
wait a
universe got
second. I don't
quarter.
need a quarter.
We're getting rid of quarters?
I don't need a quarter.
Because
Why
you
not?
saved it on your
Because-
gas bill.
Right. See, Lucy, though, our brave,
Listen, the
intellectually
reporter knows what's
honest,
going on.
our brave, intellectually honest politicians yesterday passed the bill so that rather than dealing with real problems in society like the child care centers going out of business,
Yeah.
they're instead going to waste the money saving you $1 on gas for 3 months so they can pretend but not really do anything about inflation and the pain people are feeling at the pump. And boy, I can't believe how quickly they did that.
Oh,
So we have a crisis.
teamwork makes the dream work.
We have a
Listen.
crisis in child care centers where Democrats as well as Republicans are not given the money they need to stay open so people can stay employed, so other people can go to work and drop their kids off, so kids can be healthy and safe. That's forever. That's too difficult. But it's that same amount of money in 2 seconds. The Democrats and Republicans are basically knocking each other over for the camera. Who could be the first that says, I'm going to give you 3 months with 25 cents of gas price? Even politicians have nothing to do with the vote. Our federal representatives saying, way to go, Connecticut. They're issuing releases because for 3 months you're getting 25 cents. So the Hearst newspapers did a good job. They said the average person could save $50. So that same person might not have a job anymore at the child care center. They might not have a job anymore because they can't leave their kid off.
But
And that might be tens of
Save
thousands of dollars.
$50.
But you got-
Congratulations.
And I guess what bugs me about it, I know this is naive.
It's going to be
'cause
eating up in
Babs-
inflation at the grocery store. But
well, that's $50
That's
will buy
right.
you a week's worth of food at McDonald's.
Not a week. Not
The
a
Happy
week.
Are you
Meal.
sure? I feel
Not-
like, I was about
yeah.
to say, because I feel like
Not
a Big
if
Mac
you
is a
have a
lot more
family.
expensive.
Well,
than
no,
it
you
used to
don't get
be.
that. You get the dollar meal.
But also
you go
not,
you
not
go.
if you have a family.
Well,
But then
If you
you
cut it up
If
in
you're
little
bringing your
pieces,
kids,
Lucy,
But will it
yeah.
still be
and
money
everybody,
to pay
it'll
for
be
you?
like a Christmas Carol where everybody gets a pea.
please, sir, I want
Might have
some
another.
more.
But then the other question is, will there be money left over to go to the clinic if they have a copay because of your heart attack?
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely not. Like, no.
No.
Listen, we don't want you well, we don't want you working, and we damn sure don't want your kids cared for.
That's
but we're
right.
going to
But
say
hey,
we
we saved you
That's
$50.
for gas.
But $50 though.
Right.
I
And
just
you
hate,
bet not be late to work.
and I know it's naive and it's so obvious to be saying it, but it's election year. And they can't really do anything about some fundamental problems, so they pretend they're
What do you
doing
mean they
something.
can't?
I mean, they
They
About
can.
gas prices,
They
inflation.
just
those
won't.
no, wait. Oil is a worldwide trend, whether it was because of who's pumping what, because of the war in
We're talking
Ukraine.
about oil, but we're not talking about the other problems. you
Right.
Oh, they
mentioned.
could do that, but they don't have the
can,
political will.
But they don't want
Because
to
then,
not get
because a
reelected.
country could
Yeah.
do those things that could do about the other things about like repairing the actual social safety net.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, you wouldn't have to worry about how high gas prices are if your other needs are met.
Yeah.
this is right. As someone who is from the state where they tried to kidnap the governor,
Oh,
let me tell you.
No, you weren't involved with that, were you?
No, I was not. But let me tell you, I've been
That makes you feel
watching,
better.
and like this is, my dad until very recently was working in the heart of Trump country in a hospital and saw people who did not believe that COVID was real, for instance, and through all of this, we're watching the numbers rise. We're watching people get sick. There's a healthcare crisis that already existed before COVID. And what is Gretchen Whitmer doing?
The governor.
She's trying to play it safe because she wants to get reelected. And I'm not, like, part of me is not mad at her because I don't want a Republican in that seat. But at the same time, I'm saying you gotta, like, are you protecting your constituents, which is everyone in Michigan, or are you letting people
So the
die?
question is, do we, rather than hope that politicians will not act in their immediate reelection self-interest for the public good, I guess the only answer is William Barber. I mean, the only answer is organizing political support for repairing the safety net so that they can get reelected, doing something that makes a difference instead of being phonies pandering to people with this $50 tax thing. Amen.
Amen.
I know a place you can go
between,
for free that's safe and fun and new. It used to be 7650 square feet. Now it's across the street, bright and open, lots more to do.
That's
13,000 square feet. What is that, Lucy? What am I
the
talking
new
about?
Stetson Library is so beautiful.
I haven't
It
been
is
over
not
there.
Haven't been
Stetson
yet
at the
either.
Q. I know if Diane Brown is listening, she'll fight me on this. It's not Stetson at the Q. It's Stetson, which is an anchor of the Q. So we're like
Very
it's-
distinct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Lucy always knows where I'm going. That was my second set of questions. So the Stetson Branch Library, for years, was remaining as the anchor in the Dixwell Plaza for a safe place for kids and young people and
truly a community
when the Q
center.
House closed down for many years, and when there was like the Johanna Cole thing, when the shooting, when people had nowhere else to go, that center held down the fort. A lot of positive things happened. Now they got a brand new spanking great home. Millions of dollars were raised. More people are hired. More stuff for kids to do inside the new Q House across the street. That's good, right?
It's
Fantastic.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all good. Nothing bad.
No, I like it.
It's just thinking
It's gorgeous. I can't wait to visit.
I
the
know, I gotta
refurbished
get over.
library includes 3D printer, 5 sewing machines, podcasting technology, virtual reality headsets, teen lounge with 2 televisions, a PS5, and an Xbox Series X. And this is just a prediction. I could be wrong. More kids are going to be doing stuff in there than the whole rest of Q. I could be wrong because Leap's there and they have after-school programs. So I guess a lot of good things can happen
Yeah.
everywhere.
And I will say, I was there when they opened, but in the afternoon. So Nora and Maya, wonderful, brave, intrepid reporters for the Indy, were there in the morning.
For Babs.
And yes,
Love
but I
Babs
could,
Liftoff.
as schools were getting out, I could hear music in the rest of the Q House. I could hear young voices, and that was also very exciting. So shout out to
It
Leap.
is all good.
Where do
Yeah.
people park? Is there parking somewhere?
There's a parking lot.
Okay.
I don't
I'm
know
not
how
spending
big
any
it
time
is,
over
but
there,
yeah.
so I don't.
I'm
It
curious,
looks
does
nice.
anybody know whether there'll be like adult classes and
There
things
are adult
over
classes.
there?
Yeah.
I think
So,
they just
yeah.
released
Yeah.
some
And the
some of
senior
them.
center,
Some
yep.
of them.
Oh, that's
Yep.
so
And by the
exciting.
summer, I ran into Henry Fernandez from Leap, who's running part of the building for Leap. He told me by the summer it's going to be morning through night.
Nice.
Yeah.
So there are tensions below the surface. So as
course.
always,
Of course.
and Lucy was
This
mentioning
wouldn't be
it.
this town if there
So
weren't.
Stetson made a point of saying it's not Stetson at the Q House. It's the Stetson, and the Q. It's its own thing. It's got its own entrance at Dixwell and Foot, and there's something deeper there. You know, that's ever since they redid the Q House, the board, which had people from the old Q House and the old Dixwell, the kind of people who've been around our age, Babs. They resented that the contract to run a lot of it went to Leap and a whole bunch of people who weren't from the neighborhood and weren't allied with them, and they felt insulted. They felt they should have crafted what happened. On the other end, people said, remember what happened, right? Being polite, but, you know, the Q House went out of business and the money all went away and nobody stole anything. It was just like nobody did anything wrong or evil. The place didn't happen. It fell apart, and for a lot of years it wasn't there. Money went there that didn't succeed in keeping it open. And so they did a contract this time. They had an organization, a long track record doing it. But that's the tension. You hear it. I hear it. That's what's below the surface there when they say this is our part of the queue. What do you think about all that?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's what is in the best interest of the children. Can we just not lose sight of that? Leap has a long-standing
And it's also
history.
Jeanette Morrison. So it's black on black, right? So there are people in Dixwell who resent newer leadership. And the biggest ire I've heard is about Jeanette Morrison because they felt like she championed this project, right? This was her baby. And they got the state money, the city money. And she was all on board for the process by which it was decided who would run things. And she felt very good about it. She said things are going to run, things are going to be good. And often Jeanette Morrison is somebody who represents a new generation of politics in that neighborhood. And she often butts head with people who have an older generation. That's all good. It's not my fight. And it's not really a fight. I think good things are happening. But I was really picking up on that. I hear a lot about that.
I mean, it'll be fine. I mean, Leap
It
is a
will be
trusted,
fine.
respected organization.
Yes.
And
Successful.
we have to think about what is in the best interest of the children. And, you know, honestly, Diane Brown has put out a call out to folks if they want to run programs to come and utilize the space.
Big space. Plenty of room for everybody. Everybody
so
can do
everybody
everything.
can win here. It's
Yeah.
not, oh,
And the
look
senior
at
center
them.
and Cornell Scott Hill he'll.
I'm not old
Health
enough to
center's
go to the
there.
senior center yet, but someday.
But you're
Oh,
going
the
to
health
Spain
center,
first,
yeah.
right? First,
Huh?
You're going to Spain first, right?
Okay.
Before you go to the senior center.
Yes.
A lobbyist
Legit.
once shared some very wise information with me, which is that you cannot let the great be the enemy of the good. And if you can't get the great done, if the great was going to get in the way, like maybe the ideal image would have been to have, all of these particular people involved, but also there had to be some rationale around, like, how do we get it done? How do we make sure that the thing that happened to it before never happens again?
And there was a lot of tribute to the people who came before. And that
Yeah,
opening
absolutely.
event was
I
not
think they've
hijacked by the new crew.
Done what they can do to honor those people and keep those people involved, right? Like, they didn't just say, all right, y'all gotta go. No, that's
So
not
I
what
think the
happened.
great
So,
actually became the great here.
I think so too. Obviously, clearly people don't see it that way. There are some people that don't see it that way,
No.
but what can you do?
But I think Diane also wants people to recognize, and I'm with her here. She wants people to recognize that Stetson was the de facto community center for so many years, and that is a role that she was sort of shoved into, and she rose to the challenge, and then rose some more.
And she got rewarded. I mean, millions of dollars came in. It's twice the size. They're going to be able to hit it out of the park with everything.
I mean,
they did.
I don't think she's going to be able to do
beautiful
anything
space.
about people saying Stetson inside the Q house
Yeah.
or I mean, I understand it, but I mean, that's just
I just hope the community
I
can
don't want to
embrace
say it's
the
a
Q.
small thing. I think people are like,
I think they've already
they've
embraced
already
it.
embraced
It's
it.
not nobody's staying away from the Q House or the Stetson Library.
But you know,
it's
one thing
going
that-
to become what they want to do.
But one
which was
thing
a
people
hub
did
for
not
people.
embrace at another
Uh-oh.
part of Dixville Avenue.
Uh-oh.
Come on, Lucy always knows what my next thought is.
No, I don't want to.
What did it not embrace?
You're on the air. What's my next
Are we
thought?
talking about the Apt
Of
Foundation?
course we are, Lucy. Lucy knows every thought that before it comes out of my
I
head.
didn't know if it was like a new chapter of Paw Haven that was down Dixville Avenue or something like that. Or,
See, I mean, Lucy
I don't
knows like
know.
every organization in town. So anyway, down at the other New Hallville near the Hamden line, the Apt Foundation had bought without consulting the neighbor. It was really weird what poor PR that was.
They knew what was about to happen.
Well, but then they made it worse.
I
Right?
know. They don't.
So they bought the old charter school that
talk.
was empty there, City Charter on Dixville on the Hamden line. They want to put in a method clinic. Didn't tell anyone until a certain roommate of a pundit found out and published it, and everyone went, really upset about it. And they said, we don't want to look like we're against methadone care because they're not, but look at how they run their clinic on Congress Avenue, and we don't want that here. Well, there was news this week.
Did they sell it?
They might. There's a
Good.
new crew. If you read The Independent, there's a story about how a new project emerged at the New Hallville Community Management Team. 2 partners came and said, we're in discussions to buy it, and we're about to get $2.5 million from the governor in bonding.
Okay, what do they want to put there?
Guess who the team is?
I don't want to guess.
You can guess.
No.
Who sees opportunity
Oh,
in
God.
controversy?
Boise Kimber?
Yes. Boise Kimber was there.
I'll take Boise Kimber 4,000, Alex.
Reverend Boise
I was like,
Kimber
Concord, please.
is in partnership with
please.
Clifford Beers Clinic, the mental health center. He met them through doing a really good job with having places for kids to learn at the beginning of the pandemic when schools were closed. They worked together.
And so what are they going to do?
So they're going to create Resilience Academy. You know how Reverend Kimber
Wait,
always
is this
wanted to have a
back to
charter
this?
school? Yeah, but he's claiming that's not what it is. He said it was at the community meeting, but then afterwards they clarified and they took that out of the proposal. But he can,
Another school.
well, it's going to be an after-school program and
Okay.
mental health counseling for families and kids and summer programs, and then maybe eventually morph into that school he wants. And what was interesting to me about it is, they teamed up. The neighbors all behind it. Robert Porter wrote a letter. It's on the agenda for next week to give $2.5 million. The Reverend Kimber negotiated that with the Lamont administration. Now, if you remember 4 years ago, Ned Lamont was the first Democrat running for state office who would not give money to Reverend Kimber in return for supporting. So Reverend Kimber went to support the Republican, Bob Stefanowski. Something's changed on this re-election year. All of a sudden, he came out of the governor's office, and in no time, $2.5 million is popping up.
Is
the whole
Lamont
neighbor's
scared? Is
behind
that what
it.
you're saying?
But I don't understand what he thinks the political calculation is. But in any case, the
He's like, I'm just calculating. He's like, whatever might make sure I stay.
but in
going.
any case, the neighbor's happy. They said
Oh
this
yeah,
is
no,
good.
the neighborhood's happy. They
They
just
said
don't
this
want
is
the,
good.
the App Foundation.
Yeah, and also they're saying rather than having like people not monitored right outside the street bringing drugs and crime, you can have help strengthen families. Like Clifford Beers has a good record. They have a good record at the in Fairhaven at the community center there. So like, I don't know. What do you folks think?
Whatever.
Listen,
I
the
think-
neighborhood's happy. I'm happy.
Yeah. I mean, my neighbors are happy. I'm happy.
Neighborhood's happy. I'm happy.
That's a good use of
Right.
energy and space.
So that space, when it was a Catholic school, a young Bob Stefanowski attended.
Oh, did he?
He used to live
I'm
right
surprised
off
Bob
Dixwell Avenue.
Stefanowski didn't just use his riches to buy the place.
He was thought of doing that
Just-
instead of running for governor.
Oh, yeah.
He thought of starting a charter school somewhere.
Yeah, no. Is he still running? Is he still
He's running for governor.
He's running
He's
for
a Republican.
governor.
He's got a
Very
real.
much
He's
so.
got a real shot.
Oh, what a tangled web! But like, it's just
He's
such
got a shot?
So tangled. Oh
He doesn't
yeah.
have a
yeah.
shot.
Lamont thinks he has a shot, and that's all that matters.
I don't think Bob got a shot. I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't-
Lamont is not talking about anything taxing the rich. He's cutting taxes and funny tax cuts. He's doing everything it takes. He's actually got a pretty decent record, Lamont. I mean, he's coming out of this pretty well. Our finances are in better shape.
But maybe he's running like an underdog. He's like,
He
there's
is,
always the
yeah.
possibility I could lose. So
And
I
he's
got to
run very
run
much
like
for
I'm
the
not
center,
gonna
Mr.
win.
Tough on Crime and all that kind of stuff. You know?
Oh God, everybody! I'm just so tired of this tough on crime business.
It's the same talking points for like the last 40, 50
But
years.
what
Like,
changed
it's
is that we
awful.
freshen it up on Pundit
400.
Thursday on WNHH
Well, there's-
FM, New Haven's home for community radio. We're here with the best pundits in the business, Markeisha Ricks, Lucy Gilman, and Babs Rose-Ivy about the headlines in the week. So UBI, there's a split on UBI. Lucy, what am I talking about?
UBI is Universal Basic Income.
Yes, it is.
And this is I feel like this is the split between I'm gonna get it wrong and this is really bad.
You know, it's not a
because,
test. You got it. Universal basic income. That's
Yeah.
that idea that's gotten kind of
But-
hot in policy circles where you just give money
But
to
Justin,
poor people.
I need to
AKA
be.
the mayor.
I'm poor.
is
AKA
not
the
is not
mayor.
hot on it. He's not. My understanding is he's not hot on it. So this
Who's not
For-
hot on it? The
Just-
governor? Oh, Justin.
yeah,
So now,
the boy mayor.
as usual, Lucy Gilman has
Mm.
completely accurately talked about what the story is. There's an interesting wrinkle to it. So in Stockton, California, they did a good job with testing out universal basic income. Philanthropists give the money. They said just give the money to people and their lives get better. Of course, if you gave it to everybody, remember Andrew Yang ran for that. If you really gave people enough money to make a difference, I don't know if we could afford it. It's a lot of money. But it's been tried a few places, had nice impacts.
And has been successful in places.
So here they said we're getting all
It's
this money.
interesting though. We
I
say
seen
it's
a
been tried
brother
a few
mayor
places.
did
It was
it.
actually tried by our whole country during a pandemic. like
And that really worked.
Just
And
to-
it was tried with Rosa DeLauro's child tax credit that lifted more
That
kids out of
lifted a lot of kids out of
poverty
poverty.
than
That's
any
right.
time in our
So,
lifetime.
like,
So now that's
this
gone.
idea that it's like a cute little pilot program all over in different places. No, the whole country tried it. It
So
was
the
great, and they were like, "No."
So
we're
the
not
question
doing
is,
that.
how do you go about it? So the city has this $100 million in American Rescue Plan money from the pandemic relief. Now, you can't give that to everything, although my criticism of the city, not that they're acting on a bad motives, they are trying to give a little bit to everything so it can make a big difference in nothing. That's one argument. But in any case, that is, and we can go piece by piece, but that's not
Sounds
bad
like that
motives,
tax
just the
eval.
idea. Yeah. But in any case, so they hired a consultant. What should do with the money? Let's do listening sessions. That
So
kind
now
of-
they spent some money on a consultant.
the consultant
to
said,
listen to what the community has
And
been
the
telling you
consultant
for the
said-
last 1,000 years.
and the
Point
consultant
two.
said, as
Novel.
Lucy pointed out, there are two views.
Hester Street.
Yes, they said, why don't you put $10 million toward a universal basic income experiment? So the other administration said, and Dalal, the community service guy, said, we love universal basic income. It's a good idea. But you have to look.
just not here.
Well, here's their point. Their point is that everywhere else, it was foundations that gave them money. When this money dries up in 2 years, that money's not there anymore. And in the meantime, if you give it to people who are poor, the state will count that as income and not give them welfare. So in fact, they're not
That's
going to
true.
get more money. So they're saying it's not sustainable.
Yeah,
And
'cause
some
they'll-
people aren't going to get more money.
They will cut their.
It's kind of an interesting debate.
Yeah.
I would argue 10 million is not a lot of money anyway. Just like when they're saying
No.
housing development, they're going to put $10 million to do land trusting. In a day, the slumlords that try to keep away from those properties will buy more property than that because the money they just saved with the 5-year tax reval and face it. So it's tough. The motives aren't bad. I
So
think
why
the
don't we
positive-
just do like rich people do and find other ways to get money to people? You know how they do offshore and money in other
I
countries.
thought Rosa
Like, why
DeLauro
can't we
had
do
it. I
that?
was so sad because even
Their oligarch's
Republicans,
yacht we can see.
even Republicans were on board with part of a version of what Rosa did when she got the child tax credit increase, so that millions of people lifted out of poverty overnight, and the $6 million later is gone because it was done as part of a temporary bill rather than a permanent change. To make it a permanent change, they would have had to negotiate and make some compromises with Marco Rubio and Mitt Romney, who were for the concept, but whether it was work requirement or not having everyone, because they did it in a way that middle-class people and rich people benefited as well. But it's kind of interesting. And I didn't know this till I looked up some stuff after a New Haven Independent reader mentioned it. Milton Friedman, the conservative counsel, was the one who was all for universal basic income. He wanted to replace government programs. He said, we waste the money on the bureaucracy and the rules. Just give people the money. And they'll know how to spend it better. And it'll cost less.
I mean, I'm for it. I believe that.
Yeah,
I believe it.
I think this is true. I think you have to figure out a way to do it so it's not penalizing people who are poor. But yes, I think just give people money, trust that they know how to spend that money. Boom, done.
And they do. You know, not this, let's drug test people and see if they're buying drugs. And
Or have like a
these
BS
people are trying to
work
live.
requirement.
Nobody's out here buying drugs. Like, stop it.
And I'll just again take it all the way back to where we started the conversation in the $50.
Just give them $50. It's all solved.
That's not where I'm starting, but it's the what does it take to do the hard thing that has the most benefit for people, right? You know, is it going to the state house or working with the federal government to figure out how we not penalize people who are already receiving some type of subsidy to continue to receive their subsidy? Like, if the point is to lift people out of poverty, what is the easiest way to lift people out of
Child
poverty?
tax credit sure was a good one.
That's a very and was
I'm so sad.
was
6 months.
was getting that enshrined in law, was that a part of the Build Back Better that got scrapped? Yeah. See, this is what I'm talking about.
But I
But
feel like
the conservatives' argument was that they should have done it bipartisan on its own. Mitt
for
Romney,
heaven's sake.
Mitt Romney and
if
Rubio.
that's the case, let's do it.
Mitt Romney and Rubio had a proposal, but it was not. It was going to be means tested. They didn't want wealthy people to get it, and they wanted to have a work requirement, which was problematic.
But I also feel like this is like America is Republicans and moderate Democrats saying, how do we keep poor people poor?
Or how do we do the least
how do we
amount?
distribute the crumbs
Right.
and feel really good about distributing the crumbs
Mm-hmm.
so that when we're and this isn't just legislators, this is foundations, this is organizations,
You are
this is
so
institutions.
right.
Bravo.
And then they feel really good when they give
look what
out
I
that
did
$1
for you,
million.
though.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's just my
Okay, so
feeling.
that you solved that one. But
I
didn't-
didn't solve that because I'm not president.
But on UBI, but I didn't give you the hard question yet.
Okay.
This is the question last week that really had New Haveners arguing about more than anything else. Harry says, let's get rid of the military. We'll all be speaking Russian. Okay, Harry figured that out. But now I got the hard one. Are you guys ready for the hard one? Because I waited
We're ready.
24 minutes or whatever
Ready.
hour it is according to daylight saving time.
Hit us with the hard one.
Okay, this is the thing that New Haven readers, independent readers, are arguing about more than anything. Lucy,
I don't know.
what was the big argument on the Independent this week?
I'm trying to think. I don't know.
How are you going to stop bicyclists from getting doored
Oh yeah.
on Orange Street?
I had no idea that was happening.
Really?
Although my
That's been happening
ex-husband,
forever.
that's why he stopped riding his bike, because he got doored and he went over his bike and it hurt him really bad. And
It's
he was
really
like, I'm done.
scary. It's
It's
very
scary.
scary. And I will say, I don't know that New Haven is uniquely bad on this, but it's a scary place to be a cyclist. I probably have like 6 friends who have been in serious cycling accidents, and I know one person who has died because he was
I
hit by
got
a
hit
car.
by a bus once. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. That door thing is real because people don't see you when you're coming down.
Oh, so they want to widen the
Well, it's a lot because Orange Street is narrow.
yeah.
Harry Joe says put the bike paths on the sidewalk, which actually in some areas that was the solution. When you look at the one being built on Edgewood, in parts it's in the street, and when there's a wide sidewalk, they carve out part. You don't want to stop pedestrians from having room.
Right.
But Marquise and I've talked about this so much. When there's like sharrows made it worse, those little arrows, because nobody knows what's where.
Right. And drivers seem to universally think that bikes don't have access to the road.
Oh, the
Like,
other day
they'll-
when I got
they'll
cut off
beep you
by-
and like, why are you in the road?
On
Get on
College
the
Street when
sidewalk.
someone
And you're like,
turned right
'cause
into me. Yeah.
Walk is in the name. It's sidewalk.
Someone yelled at me
It's not
recently.
side bike.
That's
It's
right.
sidewalk.
They almost knocked me over. They turned out of nowhere, speeding down Elm onto College. I was in the intersection. My bike almost hit me on the bike. No, I was riding with them. He came from behind me, and he was going to turn into me.
Oh,
And he yelled
no.
at me, like enraged, and
Oh,
said, "What? Like, basically, what business do you have to be on the road? I need
Yeah.
you to come turn right from behind you."
No, I saw that happen down close to Audubon where we work at, where that intersection that's supposed to be a raised intersection that's
Yeah.
supposed to be super
Terrible.
safe. And I saw, I was just walking from the bus and I saw a biker, a bike rider and a car get into it. And, you know, like they're just like screaming at each
What
other
about?
like about him almost hitting him with the car. But like the driver being so enraged that the bike thought that like, it's, why are you here? Like, it's your fault. Why are you here? And you're
And
like,
cyclists do sometimes ride badly too. Sometimes some of us go through.
but
the
it's
light
like,
and-
is
yeah.
there any way we can have some? I've been very fortunate, and I hope I'm not jinxing myself, but I also don't ride my bike as nearly as much as I used to when I worked at the Independent. But I've been very fortunate that I'm very good at making eye contact with people.
Me too.
And I don't move until we make eye contact. And if that means that's gonna make me late or slow me down, then fine. But
What
I
happened to
have
me
a
on El
tremendous fear
Marquesa
of
was
getting
they
hit by
came
a
from
car.
behind me, like really fast, so I didn't see them. I'm crossing the intersection with traffic. This car comes behind me and then slips in front of me and just nicks me.
Yeah, and the people who want to beat you, and they're like, they have no, like, can't really judge how fast or slow
But they
you
also
are going.
believe you're not supposed to be there. It's
No,
their road.
absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
But it is a tough question about dooring because often you don't see. Like I always have to remind myself to really be careful when I open a door because you almost hit somebody. Like people coming down, and they were exaggerating the comment section, but they're coming 10 miles an hour down on a bike. You're in your car. Orange Street is crowded. It's narrow.
But don't people
There's
look
no
to see if
urbanism.
bikes are coming?
No.
Sometimes we
No.
don't. Sometimes we
No,
just
I
turned
mean,
off our phone.
In some I feel like someone
always
told
looking.
me
You are,
that
that's good.
in Scandinavia folks do this. They would, where you use your opposite arm when you're getting the car door, and that causes you to both turn around and look.
That's so
That's a great idea.
But then also to do it more slowly because you're being more methodical about it. I will say there are times when I've swung a door open, and luckily there was not a cyclist there, but I thought, wow, I did that really quickly.
Yeah.
And this debate is real because if you're, it can cause real harm. As
So
you
then
said.
often, as you mentioned with the race sidewalk, Markeisha, sometimes we think we'll fix it by building something that has unintended consequences. Doesn't mean we shouldn't try, like all the stuff like speed bumps. Remember on Love Babs, like I was talking. So they're saying, do you get rid of parking on one side of the street so there's more room, and we'll just do a two-way bike lane that has its own side of the street? Then other people said that's terrible because businesses already, their people have no place to park and they're paying tax to cities. They'll have to leave because there isn't a lot of parking, right? We like new urbanist neighborhoods. We like when there are a lot of people and a lot of uses and a lot of density, as they call it. But that means we all kind of got to share the space. It's not so easy, so something has to go. You don't have room for a two-way bike lane, parking on one side of the street, and parking for everyone who lives and wants to go to the restaurants.
And I would argue that some cyclists argue that like that's not how the road is supposed to work. Like the road is supposed to be for vehicles, and a bike is effectively a vehicle. And if you create kind of these like siloed spaces, you're still not achieving, because we also have a problem with speeding badly in this country, period, because of road design. Like it's not so much that like it's the design of the road that literally is not stopping people down, like to slow down or make even just good decisions about their driving. And so you're not really changing habits. You're just creating like segregation. And also if you think about the environmental impacts of adding like porous surfaces where water runoff is happening, you're just creating more of that too. So like you're creating one problem trying to solve another problem. I mean, you talked about Scandinavia. There are plenty of countries that have bike cultures that value bikes that say if you hit somebody with your car, it's gonna be bad for you.
That's right.
Don't do that. But we live in a country that's very permissive that says you can have you can drive a big dangerous vehicle. You can have a gun in said dangerous vehicle. Oh, if you have this little slip of paper, and you can shoot them. Like we're a dangerous.
You
like,
can have a
we're
drink
on the
And they
earth
do, by the
of
way,
powerful
dangerous
things.
vehicle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
To
we're a
your
country
point,
that's like,
Markeisha,
you
there's
can
a
do
stand
all
your
of these
ground. There's a
dangerous
stand your
things.
ground proposal now in Connecticut's legislature.
Of course there is. Of
I
course.
mean, I think it's going to require a really good campaign to educate people about bike safety and the sharing of the road with things other than cars. I think that's got to be
There's a lot of
part
pedestrians get hit.
I think that has to
a
be
lot of
part of
pedestrians
the
get hit.
re-education of people around how to sort of live and work and walk and
in
ride
an urban environment
together in this environment.
Are we anti-bike lane, like protected bike lane in this room?
I love protected
I'm
bike
not
lanes.
I do
anti
too,
them,
but
I don't think it does do one thing, right? It solves an immediate problem, providing some level of protection for people who are on bikes. At the same time, it does not change car culture, right?
I would
But
And
it
I think
stops
there
them
has
from
to
running
be.
you over.
But can you do nobody can afford to do that everywhere.
Right.
There's no community that can afford
But
to do
in
that everywhere.
40,000 years, is one being constructed over 40,000 years on Edgewood Avenue?
well, I would say though,
In 40,000
if you-
years, I hope cars fly.
if
Like,
you
I
go
just-
to-
what are we doing?
But if you go to like Minneapolis, St. Paul, there is much more bike infrastructure there. There are also problems like it's negative 10 degrees most of the year.
There's some hardy people out there who will ride their bike in the
That's right. But there are more protected bike lanes. And I will say when I was there visiting a couple of years ago, I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. And so I have a friend and her wife rides her bike everywhere. She doesn't drive a car. And she feels much safer in the protected bike lanes. And I agree that it's also a systemic issue. Like we need to teach people to share the road. But in the interim, how do we make sure cyclists don't die?
Harry Drost has it figured out.
Hit us with it.
Sharing the road is not working. Bikes add time to your drive.
Harry. Mm-mm.
You know what adds time to my drive? Death.
Yeah.
I don't know. My drive's done at that point. But we're just beginning with Pundit Thursday. WNHH-FM New Haven's home for community radio, 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenandpenn.org. Well, Dion Coleman's still at it. He committed a crime when he was 19. It wasn't a nice crime. It was armed robbery. He spent a lot of years. He's now 31. He's out for a couple of years. He's trying to get it back together. And he's collecting cans. He's not ashamed of it. It's not a lot of money. He spends 3 hours, gets 4 hours, gets $12. He was on Love Babs this week on Word on the Street. And, it's kind of interesting. Some people, there was a whole discussion about what he should do about that. Now, Babs brought up the issue that he wasn't vaccinated. He believed some of the, theories about vaccination. And some person said, well, he said he can't get some jobs because of that. Someone said, if I have an employer, I want someone who follows the rules. But but then again, we heard from someone from the Carpenters Union said, give us the number. We think we're going to link this guy up. So I'm rooting for him. I don't know. What do you think, Babs?
No, I listen. This week we heard 3 different stories by 3 different young black men in this city who live here. 3 very different young black men with 3 different trajectories for their lives. And if he can be helped, help him. Why wouldn't we do that?
It's just what you say about trajectories, because this morning we heard from a young man. They're kind of in similar situations. Well, 2 of the 3 are in similar situations. They've had to overcome adversity. One had grown up in foster homes, and there was death, and there was trouble. He didn't do anything wrong, but
every black person has overcome adversity in this city, in this town, in
and
this
his
world.
attitude was very different from
the first
Dion.
guy, from Dion.
Yeah, like this guy, he hadn't been in prison. But he said, I've had to overcome some things. He's working at McDonald's, but he's psyched about it. He's living at Youth Continuum. They help him get a place to live. He was psyched. He was positive. He wasn't embarrassed about anything that happened. He's positive. I'm psyched now that I'm at McDonald's. I'm going to work on my music because I'm going to be music produced, and this is going to give me the leg up. And Dion, we're rooting for him too, but he's kind of bitter about the rules, not just about vaccine. He's kind of mad. He's got a lot of anger coming up that you can understand, that I'm worried is going to get in his way. I don't know.
Yeah, no, he's upset that people hold his record against him. He's upset that, he's got to be vaccinated. He's got to wear a mask. He's got to do all the things that we have to do to be civil in society. That's just what it is. And, I get it. I get the anger, but I think at some point, and he's 32, right? He's got a new baby. You have to put away childish things for adult things. And I don't think he's made that cross over
But he's
yet.
trying, and to his credit. You're going out
I'm
there
not suggesting he's not
No, I know you're not.
trying.
I
But,
wasn't contradicting you.
but he's, at some point we all have to sort of step up into the adult world and do the things that require us to sort of move ourselves forward. He's got to listen. You got to wear a mask in some places. You got a record. So what can you do to overcome that? You got to get vaccinated because that's going to be a barrier to opportunities.
Right.
That's just what it is.
And it sounds like, just to throw this out there, someone who's dealing with re-entry life. I'm sure there's some mental health assets he would need to help overcome some of the things you're talking about, right? He's probably not had that, right? Someone who can help him think through, hey, what are the things that happened to you that led you to this place in your life? Yeah, you need a job, but you also need the requisite skills to hold on to that job. Mm-hmm. And some of those skills aren't just technical skills; they're emotional skills. They're life skills. They're mental health skills. And we just assume that people are born with those things, but they're not. You have to learn them. They have to be taught to you. And
I think the thing that made me nervous for him, and this was at the heart of it, because there's been a couple of carjackings in Hamden, and I just thought, this brother is up in Hamden. The cops are going to roll up on him and say, what are you doing? Who are you? And his whole attitude is going to suggest something to them that they're just going to have to deal with, right? They're just going to... They're gonna make an assumption about him.
About it.
Yeah, they're not gonna hear whatever. They're
not gonna hear that he's a new father. That he's looking for work.
And it's the Hamden police who arrested him last time.
Yeah. So
there's already that bad history.
So I just was nervous the whole time when he was on our show that he was up there doing cans because he just fits the description, right? That's just. And I thought, oh, this is just gonna be problematic.
I'm hoping Ernie Pagan got him set up. Chris Marquise is listening. Thank you for listening, Chris, and writes in, I live in East Rock and ride my bike on Orange Street. Before we do anything drastic, maybe we should try a campaign to bring more awareness, maybe post signs for cyclists and drivers.
Well, that's what I said. I said, I think you have to re-educate people about the safety of the land, transportation safety, whether it's on a bike and car safety. That I think there ought to be a real campaign around that to just remind people that bikes and cars and bikes and other vehicles can coexist.
And that it's safety for everybody. Like it's not just safety. Like, and I think that's more of what I'm getting at, is that it's not just safety for bicyclists. It's not just, trying to inconvenience people in cars. Like it's we all share this space and we're going to inconvenience each other in some way. How do we do that in the safest way that you can get where you're going? And that we're not having a shouting, cussing match because you almost killed me and you're upset because you almost killed me.
I once had a surprisingly positive conversation to that end. This was years ago. I was on my bike in New Haven. Some guy's blasting his horn because he couldn't turn when I was there. And I stopped and I said, he had a big car. I said, why'd you do that? He said, bro, I don't want to run you over.
Yeah, some people are actually just being nice. They're like, I'm about to turn.
I said, well, thank you. I really thank you. I wasn't mad at him. I said, it kind of threw me off because I'm legally allowed in the road. He said, but look at how big my vehicle is and how little yours is. In other words,
I'm trying not to kill you.
It's the rule of the road. Whoever's bigger gets the road. It doesn't matter what the rules are. And he wasn't being obnoxious. He wasn't being me. He wasn't being antagonistic. He was basically saying, don't you realize what real life is? It's not like what the signs say. It's not like the law. It's like I'm out on the road. I got this big vehicle. I'm going to go where I'm going. If you're in the way, you're flattened.
I would have liked for him to be like, because I've actually had this experience, which is sometimes people are just beeping at you, not because they're annoyed that you're in the way. They're like, I want to let you know, like the guy who almost or did hit you coming from behind you if instead of running up on you, but like beeping saying, hey, I'm coming around. So if you haven't, because some bikers don't look. And they just keep they assume I have the road. I can do. No, you always have to look. I don't trust anybody. But sometimes the cars are just letting me know I'm here. I'm about to do this thing. You should probably pause just in case I get it wrong. So I've had that experience too. So yeah. I just want everybody to be a little kinder. I'm not a sap in that way. Like people got to be nice, but I'm like, okay, everybody's a little stressed. I need people to chill out.
I think going back to Babs's point, it's also people talking past each other. So I feel like I'm about to get in some hot water with people, some of whom are my friends. But a lot of the most vocal cycling advocates in New Haven are transient way people who live in East Rock. And they're doing really good work, but they are not talking about how to do this and present it as an intersectional issue and how to coalition build in New Haven, partly because they don't have the time to do that as volunteers. And so meanwhile, cyclists are getting hit, pedestrians are getting hit, some of whom are getting killed. And that is an urgent issue that we need to fix. And then at the same time, no one's talking about how, I believe, if you look at where the neighborhoods in which pedestrians were hit last year, the year before that, there are huge infrastructure issues in those neighborhoods where the DOT has said, oh, black and brown people live there.
It's like,
we're going to put those neighborhoods on the back burner. But look at Orange Street. We just repaved it.
I don't think DOT paved Orange Street. That's a local road.
Well, okay. So I was wrong on that.
Yeah.
But it's there are so many issues where I feel like, or that LT. How long has the DOT said that they're going to fix that intersection in LT
that was death.
where a young mom was killed a couple years ago?
Terrible.
And then I feel like another pedestrian was killed 2 years ago. And people keep getting killed because it's like 6 lanes of traffic. Everyone's moving.
Speedway. It's terrible. Yeah. It's the most dangerous place. They tried rubber duckies.
It's very, very dangerous.
Worse.
Yeah. And so, you've got folks dying at that intersection. You've got, there's the Edgewood Ave by Davis Street. And multiple pedestrians.
Whaley by Davis.
Yeah.
Where 2 people died.
Multiple pedestrians have been struck and killed. Yeah.
And they made it faster. They made that widened road. That's what we were all mad about.
That's right. And
the solution is to go faster.
So I think that there needs to be communication about how this is an issue that is bigger than just cyclist safety on Orange Street or on one street in New Haven. This is a big New Haven issue, and we need to have an intersectional approach to it.
I agree.
As they say on Pundit Thursday, with the best pundits in the business, Lucy Gelman, Markeisha Ricks, Babs Rawls, Ivy. So I was surprised at one place I was this week where people were really friendly and warm and chill and nice.
Lucy?
I don't know. Was it High Bazaar?
Well, of course they always are. But as long as you don't ruin their buzz. But at the candlelight vigil for a 17-year-old young man who was shot dead. Now, usually, it's you tiptoe when you go to those things because people are upset. They're raw. A lot of times, it's families. I got threatened once and physically with being at one of them because they don't want you there because they've been up to bad things and people in the family feel guilty. They don't want things known. You never know what you're going to encounter. So I kind of held back a little bit. I went to Florence Virtue Homes off Goff and Orchard where 17-year-olds kills. And the only reason I went was because I was picking up this vibe that this was different. That this kid was, by all accounts, just like like Babs talked about this morning. He was a very successful kid. They even read me his record in academics, 98 in pre-AP chemistry. He was taking a Yale course. But that also, he was like, the grown-ups were telling me at the school, he's the young guy who looks in the eyes, very sweet. And the kids were all saying chill. His friends were there. And his mother was there, and he had 4 moms, quote-unquote, who helped raise them, were there. They were actually in a decent mood thinking about him, and they hugged everybody, and they were so kind. And there was even though it was such a horrible thing, and we still don't know why he was killed, what I'm picking up is this no big thing that would make you think something horrible was going on. It's but he was obviously a great guy. And what's more tragic than a 17-year-old getting shot in the stomach in a car, parked in the parking lot there, and when he had his life ahead of him and clearly doing well. But what really struck me was the vigil. They bring the balloons. I don't highlight that because the readers are all mean because yes, you shouldn't be putting balloons up. But and there are people who go to some of these vigils who might not have known him, young people who are involved in churches to give the prayer. But the mother was very open. She'd come up from Alabama because he lives with dad, but she grew up here and was taking the young people there and saying how much she cares about them and hopes that they're careful at night because it's tough when you're going around. And I was just thrown by the positivity. I know there's certain religious traditions where it's like the homecoming, you celebrate because they're going out to better place. It wasn't like that. It was like when you go to those vigils and they are often tense places, especially a reporter showing up. They're not happy to see, right? They were hugging. They were talking openly. You didn't have to you want to ask because I could take it further. They were all cool with everything. They were almost at a peace with what the situation was. It was interesting.
Well, it sounds very beautiful that the mom was able to, because that just in a sense that whatever the case may be about the circumstances of his death, that the mom had the presence of mind to hold space for the people who were there, who knew him, who were connected to him.
Yeah.
Because those things, in addition to everybody's own raw emotions, some sense of wherewithal that if the circumstances were different or a bit more volatile, that it could become more volatile. I think about the story I wrote. The piece I wrote way back when the young man was being sentenced and the families were in the courtroom together and they were ready to come to blows. And I'm like, this is ruining everybody's life, right?
And I remember the guy who grabbed my notebook, threw it down, threatened me at the Edgewood and Boulevard one because he was in the life and he obviously felt guilty about his.
Right.
Whereas these were obviously people everyone there was sort of
right. They were able to appreciate that this was just a really tragic thing to happen. And what grace they exhibited. Wow.
But I feel bad for Kieran Jones and everybody who cared about him and
I do feel some sense of I've been hearing some rumblings just that that kids who are connected to him are really hurting. So I hope the other adults that mom
they
are
said that
the school
and I met some of the kids. They said at school it was rough and the grown-ups were saying the adults in the school were too,
are also taking it really hard. So my heart goes out to all of the people connected to that young man because I suspect showing up for school the day after he was killed was very difficult, and I hope that the administration has made space for people to grieve. Yeah,
well, there's a new administration temporary there, and that's a little
what
tough.
I hear.
And we won't talk about that. We don't talk about that. But the people right under that person were some of the ones I talked to, and they were on it. They were on it. But that's rough stuff.
I mean, it's always rough. I mean, just because this. I mean, I think any young person, whether they're in the life or in the game or whatever it is, it's tragic.
Oh, that's the other thing. The police made a point of telling me.
I don't.
This guy was not on any radar, and also the street outreach work.
I know.
Yeah.
I got that part, but just because he's not in the game
doesn't mean he's
that it's not.
It's a better murder. It's
right.
It's a better killing.
Tragedy.
Yeah.
It's still a tragedy. It's still painful. And sure, his mother had grace, but I think every mother that goes through this has grace, and whether they show out and express that grief in some kind of way, that's okay too. Like this mother is not better than all the other mothers.
Yeah.
And
They're all.
I hope that's not what I was indicating. 'Cause it
No,
wasn't.
no, I'm not suggesting
And
that
plus,
you were.
I've never seen a
saying,
case where a mother didn't show grace.
I'm
for
just
the record.
saying
Yeah.
that black women and black mothers have just been graceful through all of these killings. I mean, when
Yeah.
you look at Trayvon Martin's mother, you look at all these mothers. All these mothers have shown grace and have been open and willing to sort
I
of
agree.
forget. I would never be that mother, right? Like I would just be off the chain
And
for
Mrs.
days
Torres,
and days and
she's a
days.
Latina, the woman. Like the thing also struck me is when you deal with people, not just murders, just like grief. Sometimes parts of it don't hit you till later. You know what I mean? Where you like,
I mean, my sorority sister Odell Montgomery Cooper, her son was killed. He was
Sora Valerie
murdered.
as
In
well.
a senseless
My
act
my
of
other
violence,
sorority
yeah.
sister, Val, her son played with the school with my kids, and played basketball with my kids, and so having him killed was like having one of my kids killed. Like it was just stunning to me.
a crime that really upset a lot of seniors in Hamden. A 74-year-old woman who works at the library, and she was carjacked on the ground, serious injury. She's in the hospital. That Hampton Plaza thing's been tough for me because during the campaign it was hot dogged for municipal elections last year. Like there had been one or two incidents. It's not like it was dangerous to shop there. But there has been an uptick of these thefts, like a lot more, 120 in a few
I
months.
concern myself about it because I have I'm not fully mobile the way that I want to be, and I just feel very vulnerable. And so I can't imagine, somebody running up on me and pushing
And there
me
have been
down.
a bunch, and they take the car. Young
A
people take the
bunch.
car. Yeah, a bunch. And there have been 120 thefts, and a lot of them from autos in the shopping centers there. The guy who owns the shopping center flew in from California immediately. Like it happened one day. The next day, he
So
was
what
at
do
a
they do?
meeting
Do they
with
put
seniors.
security? I mean, I thought they had
There's
security,
security
in there,
out
like,
there.
that drive up and down and the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And not for nothing, like Hampton Plaza is like right next door to a school. So
I
I'm like,
know.
what in the world is happening?
Yeah,
Like,
because I
don't-
always want to resist hot dogging it because it got really exaggerated in that campaign. I don't think it's dangerous to go shop at Hampton
No.
Plaza, but crime happens. It's happening all over the country.
But
It
how
happens in
many
suburbs.
times does it take before we realize it's dangerous? Like, what's the number?
Like what makes it? And people's perception is everything. If people feel that it's dangerous, it's going to be a problem
And
for
wait,
Hampton.
this is broad
Perception's
daylight.
so
This
important.
74-year-old lady wasn't out at dark. It
Yeah.
wasn't dark. It was middle of the day.
And what does it? I mean, I guess if we were thinking about solutions, because people's automatic solutions, there need to be more police out there. I don't know that we need to do that.
No.
But maybe if those police weren't just riding around in the parking lot, because that's what I usually see them doing. Like the security that's out there, what are they doing? Like,
But the other thing
know.
about crime is
do they
crime
meet
is
people?
horrible.
Do they go say, "Hey, I'm the security officer"?
The other
out
thing
here?
is that like crime
I
can
don't
happen
know.
anywhere. Like
This
the
is true.
Cheshire murders happened in Cheshire, and it's real. Crime is real. It's upsetting. It's not a good thing. Statistically,
It is, but
If
I'm
you
like, what
focus
can
on
you
an
actually
incident-
do to make people feel safe, right?
right? One thing they say is not report on it, which I don't think is the answer. But part of the point was the
No,
police
I
chief.
don't think that's the
Police chief was
answer.
here and said, you guys, or actually the Republican mayoral candidate who was trying not to hot dog it said, you guys scare the hell out of people when you write about every little incident, and it's hard to have the context that it's it's also
Like in
terrible
the
if,
grand scheme
if a
of-
comet falls on your head, or you
Yeah.
actually thought you were getting Tylenol and instead it was fentanyl and you died. Like that kind of thing's horrible. It doesn't mean you have to be scared and you go around. It's probably going to happen. It's good to watch out, make sure there's no tampering on the bottle, there's no comet coming on your head. But it's real crime. I always struggle with that as a journalist because I think we should talk about crime because it matters.
But I think that's the tension in almost everything, right? Like that's how we assess our risk,
yeah.
right? It's how we assess our risk about COVID. How safe is it to wear your mask in one place or not another place? Like we're constantly assessing our risk. I think about the people whose life isn't set up so that they can assess their risk. Our life is all set up. We don't have to shop at Hampton Plaza. We can go anywhere else. I can go to North Haven. I can go anywhere
But
else.
I'm not sure it's safe for those places.
I'm not sure that it's safer either, but my perception of safety might be that it's safer somewhere else. But I'm thinking about the people who don't have any options. Hampden Plaza is where they have to
they
shop.
live right away.
It's closest
Yeah.
to the bus line. I mean, I even go out to Hampden Plaza on
And
the
all
bus
the
on
apartments right
occasion
behind it, Mixed
because I
Avenue,
get my hair cut
seniors.
in Hampden. So I'm like, well, if I'm out this way, let me just take the bus
And people
down.
live at the senior places. Yeah.
And I always think about that when we categorize certain neighborhoods as dangerous. Like, what are we actually saying? Because for the people who live there, some of them have lived there 50 plus years. And they're like, it's not that the neighborhood is dangerous. There are certain people operating in the
certain
neighborhood that
people-
might be dangerous.
Exactly.
There are certain people operating at Hampden Plaza that are doing dangerous things. And how do we make it unfriendly for the people who think, because this is what every neighborhood has to grapple with. How do I make it unfriendly enough in this neighborhood for you to do what you think you can do or get away with here? We often think adding police is that option, but sometimes dogs, having a neighborhood that's full of dogs that are out barking, is that people who feel comfortable enough to walk around their neighborhood makes it less likely that people are going to do like what does it
Lighting.
like so what do we do? Lighting. Hampton Plaza is not a friendly place. It's definitely not a friendly place for a pedestrian. I've seen people have accidents. I was just sitting there observing. I was at the Starbucks there. The people there are perfectly nice. I was having a Starbucks because I had an appointment in Hampton in that area. So I was just sitting outside because it was a beautiful day. I saw an accident. I saw right in the parking lot that I'm like basically sitting in. I see people, like the few pedestrians who brave, and I'm one of them, nearly get hit. I saw other people at the roadway nearly getting hit. I was like, what is happening? It was like chaos happening right here.
Well,
and
how
I
was
just
the
sat
coffee?
there observing. The coffee was great. The people in Starbucks were very nice. Shout out to that Starbucks. They're getting a new Starbucks. So that thing that they're building in the front
Oh, is
is a
that what
brand
that
new
is?
Starbucks. Yeah.
Oh.
So,
And
you sit
despite-
there and get intel.
Despite the horror and dangers of walking inside our door, you three, as always, had very busy weeks. Now, I can't be a good enough reporter to know everything you do every minute, but I did check social media and the arts paper. And I do know that several of you saw the New Haven Symphony at Southern,
Yes.
went to a dress rehearsal to Schubert for the 6 Wives of Henry VIII, including a band.
Yes.
You went to the Long Wharf Theater Dreamhouse Gentrification Fantasia show. I went to Kalita and Super Yam band.
Which looked great.
It was
Looked
it
really
was
great.
good
it was
time.
one of the best times I've had in my life.
You should have
It was
messaged me. I would
I
have
was
came.
way too.
He
Well, I wasn't
Facebook
gonna go
Lived it.
because it was a Thursday
That's
night.
not
It was
the same
past my
being there, Lucy.
bedtime, and I just thought, you know what? I just goddamn go. And like it
Yes,
reminded me, this
yes.
guy was a protege of King Sunny Ade, and I was remembering my wife Karen and I going there in the early '80s, and Toads was one of the best concerts we ever saw. And then I saw these people, because I was the old fart. I saw these young people who were the same age having that same kind of liberated vibe. But anyway,
Love that.
you went
Full
to the
circle, right?
you went to the pre-opening of Cannon Restaurant, a
Yes.
English pub, which we went Sunday night, which was fantastic.
Did you have the roast, the Reuben?
Corn,
The Reuben?
I got the corned
The
beef,
corned beef?
vegan corned beef. It's all vegan and veggie. They got to get their license though. It's a great pub. They're
Yeah,
like,
we
Yeah,
We
they
need
need
a
some
beer.
beer.
You went to lunch at Rawa.
Yes.
Was
How are
Also-
they doing there?
Killing it with some vegan food right
Yeah,
about
they're
now.
killing
They
it
have
with-
vegan there?
Yeah, you
Yes.
get this great pizza that
Oh.
is vegan. It's so good.
Oh,
Yes.
It's
Oh.
so good.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
They have a
Oh.
And I think
and
they
it's
can make
eggplant.
anything
Look at
vegan.
how
Oh.
excited
Oh,
he
it's
is.
so
I
good.
love
It's
it.
so
You
good.
didn't-
It's my favorite
Yeah,
thing.
it's super good. They have very good cocktails as well.
Oh yeah, good cocktails.
and you went to one of the hidden gems in New Haven, one of the most places to step inside, and you're in heaven. It's ethereal, which is Creco's Pencil Museum
Oh
in the Hill.
yes, I've never been there.
I haven't
I've been there.
yet
It's
either,
amazing.
actually.
Now, was
It's
he
a
playing the
beautiful
jazz?
space.
Was the jazz playing softly?
Yes.
He makes that jazz.
Does he
That's
really?
his music.
Oh, is it?
Yes,
that's
or at least it
phenomenal.
used to be when I was there. He does those big detailed pencil posters of Grand
phenomenal.
Central
It is
Station.
stunning. I need
amazing.
him to cover them though. Like they just seem out in the open. So I'm
Like they're exposed. Like
And
you
he
need to
has this
protect them.
tall building he renovated, like it's big, airy, several floors with tons of light, where you go and you see
It's a
these
beautiful
pencil
space.
murals he did that
Gorgeous.
are just brilliant.
Have
Yeah.
you been there, Lucy?
Oh, many times.
I love this.
I
I'm
feel like we
trying
got
to
to take
figure
the
out-
students back there this
Yes,
spring.
yes.
Have you been there?
I haven't been, so
I
I
have
would
to
like
figure- I'm
to.
trying
We
to
take the
figure out-
students.
The
so
baby
we should take, yeah, we're
journalists,
gonna take the
yeah.
baby journalists.
I need
Oh,
to figure out what
definitely.
kind of event we could have there because it's
So
such
there
a
you go.
great
It is a great, but
space.
you're
a
so
little
right.
jazz wear.
Maybe an NHH event. Yeah. So there you go. We round out. We spend most of our time talking about what's wrong, but there's so much that's
There's
right.
so much.
Oh, there's
right.
so much.
And we
that's
are
right.
so lucky to be living in New Haven, enjoying such a great city and a great community. And what's even better than getting together on Pundit Thursday?
And next
Nothing.
week is restaurant week, so
So there you
Ooh,
go.
So, be
we
on the
could,
lookout
we
for
could
that.
go hit a couple of places.
It's a little pricey.
I mean, if you go for lunch,
Lunch.
Okay. Especially now they got vegan pizza at Rawa. I didn't know that.
Oh, you
you
have to
you
get
have
it.
to have it.
It's
Well,
my
there you go.
favorite thing. Going in just like I want the pizza that Babs has every time she comes in here, and then you get the rawa cocktail. Start with that.
Hibiscus and tequila.
Hibiscus and tequila. Oh my
Ooh,
god!
My goodness.
And then you get the pizza, and you get you get the
We
like
get the avocado. Oh.
Now, Carol's gluten free. They don't have gluten free, right?
You don't have to eat the bread.
Yeah.
Well, not on the pizza you do, but
They have salads.
yeah, they have stuff.
Oh, they got all kinds of
They
stuff.
have good hummus.
Mm.
Well, there you
But
go.
the avocado
Get the
is really
avocado.
Babs Rolls Ivy.
You were
Keisha
hungry
Ricks.
if you couldn't tell.
Lucy Gelman, the hungriest journalist in town. Run down the news.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Thanks for making the time. I really do thank you for making the
No,
time
thanks for
I
bringing
love
the
doing
pundits
this with you.
back.
Thank you for
Yes.
having us.
for
a
Thursday
good
Pundits.
time.
Thanks to Harry Drost, in addition to having the most incisive comments that blow our minds. Also runs the station and produces the show.
We're just gonna let
Go
Harry
Harry.
fix it. We're gonna let Harry fix it.
And we're gonna let the Afro-Semitic experience take us out with the Wish I Knew How It Feel to Be Free from their CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day, all night, all weekend long, while these pundits are painting the town red on WNHH New Haven's home for community radio.
See you next week.